The Last of Us Factions was a surprising masterpiece. The gameplay, intense combat, and maintaining your own faction for survival was awesome. So how do you iterate on a masterpiece like this and make it better? Well, if someone knows, tell Naughty Dog because they obviously need help. Ambition can be great, but that same ambition can also kill. Here we are on the cusp of 2024, hearing The Last of Us multiplayer project is essentially screwed. Naughty Dog has let go of 25 quality assurance developers who are on the project in a contractual capacity, and it has been reported that the game, although not officially cancelled, is on ice. Let's be honest, the new Last of Us multiplayer game should have been out years ago. It should have launched with Part 2 in 2020 for God's sake. This new multiplayer game, which I will simply call Factions 2, has been in development for a very long time. How long? Well, it was announced all the way back in 2019, meaning development on it had to have started by at least 2018. But is that really the case? Of course not, because they were likely working on the multiplayer when developing The Last of Us 2. Part 2 was announced in December 2016, and the development for the game began in 2014 and then ended in 2020. Obviously, the multiplayer would not be the immediate focus, but by 2016 or 2017, Naughty Dog must have started some sort of work on it, meaning Factions 2 has potentially been in development for 6 or even 7 years. So what went wrong? Well, of course, choosing to make it more than just a multiplayer add-on was the first mistake, but once that happened, ambition killed this project. Naughty Dog is an insanely talented game studio that makes masterful single-player games. But a studio with no experience suddenly wanting to make an ambitious game as a service, it was going to be a monumental task. A live service game is a different beast, and very few succeed or stay popular for very long. For every Apex Legends, there are 10 games that died trying to be a competitor. Even with all this risk, Naughty Dog continued work on Factions 2. We pretty much got updates yearly from the studio head, Neil Druckmann. After announcing Factions 2 in 2019, he stated in 2020 that it would be worth the wait.
You're a liar! Slimy scumbag liar!
In 2021, he said nothing would be shown until it was ready. In 2022, he shared some concept art. Earlier this year in May, the studio announced the game needed more time, which I will go more into in just a moment. It's been reported Sony was pushing live service games, so it makes sense they wanted their premium studio to make something awesome. With the pedigree and talent Naughty Dog has, if they can succeed with the live service element of the game, the rest of the game was likely going to be good. Unfortunately, it seems they did not succeed very well with their live service element. Them announcing this year that the game needed more time happened because of the game being internally reviewed. This was the official beginning of the end for this project. Specifically in May, Bungie, who was essentially acting as Sony's in-house consultant for live service games, reviewed Factions 2. They basically said it was lacking, and it was unsure that the game would keep players long-term, which is a large issue since player retention is a necessity for live service games.
Let me go. Please.
Bungie is of course the experts in this department, given the studio's success with Destiny and Destiny 2. After this review, Sony moved many devs off the project, prompting that previous statement by the studio saying the game needed more time. So the writing was on the wall that Factions 2 was not doing well. I mean, we never even saw gameplay. But this got me thinking, what were they trying to do with the game? Taking a step back, they already had the foundation of Factions completed, and they knew how loved that was. Take Factions 1, expand the story elements a bit, add a bunch of costumes and cosmetics, and you essentially have a bare-bones live service game. From this perspective, they had so much done already. They knew how the gameplay worked, had a bunch of assets ready from Last of Us 2, and most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, they knew that gamers considered the gameplay very fun and entertaining. They already had more to work with than any other live service game, yet something went astray. So I ask, given that they had a great foundation, how did it become so off the rails that nothing will ever come out?
Double kill.
My personal theory is that the game was trying to do too much. Neil Druckmann had one statement that may hint at what the game was trying to do. He said, "The project is shaping up to be a fresh, new experience from our studio, but one rooted in Naughty Dog's passion for delivering incredible stories, characters, and gameplay." This says a lot, but what is most telling is that they may have been trying to tell an ongoing story. If I had to guess, they were trying to make a live service game with the quality of The Last of Us single-player games. Mo-capped actors, multiple characters and storylines, etc. It even could have been dynamic, where if you lose a multiplayer game, one of those characters died and they would be replaced with someone with completely new lines. Maybe depending on what happened in Factions 2, characters would have a bunch of branching dialogue options. Or, like Fallout 4, you could create and customize your own camp that changes based on what happens in matches. Maybe they wanted to establish a living world on a server where you could storm someone else's camp for supplies, kidnap their people, etc. This would all be cool, but it represents a potential nightmare for the devs who need to accomplish such tasks. With my theories here, you could start to see how this could get out of control. Again, I have no insider knowledge and do not know what the game was actually going to be like, but even the simple ideas I just gave out could be cool and unique, but extremely difficult to do right. Naughty Dog is about pushing boundaries, so it's no wonder they got in over their heads with this game. So will we ever see Factions 2? No, likely not. News recently broke that Anders Howard, Naughty Dog's principal monetization designer on the project, departed the team as well. At this point, the game is dead, and it's far more likely they'll reuse whatever they have now and make it play exactly like Factions 1. They could also just add that as a mode for the remake of Part 1 or even Part 3 eventually. But regardless of what Naughty Dog decides to do, the studio has lost a ton of money they are not going to get back. I'll end with this. No matter how big you are never too big to fail. Naughty Dog is lucky. Losing 25 developers under contract who are doing QA is nothing, especially when the studio is made up of 400 employees. However, this sort of project is one that sinks entire studios, so they'll get out of this relatively unscathed. In the future, I do hope to see more leaked information about Factions 2 because us fans should have gotten what we deserve, and we did not. I want to know what actually happened to make a project go from a guaranteed good multiplayer game to one that is essentially cancelled. I'd like to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.